Hello, hello. Ron Callis with One Firefly, and here to bring you another episode of Automation Unplugged. Today is Wednesday, January 27th. It is a new time in that we are typically going live with you at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. But today's a busy day because there is actually the Savant sales meeting, national sales and dealer meeting going on. I'm sure it has a more formal name than that. And I probably should know that because today at 1 o'clock, there's a number of marketing sessions and or roundtables, and I've been invited to actually join that. And so I'll be joining the Savant team, and we're going to have a lot of fun fielding Savant dealer member questions around, social media strategies, web strategies, online strategies, kind of factoring in COVID and the pandemic, and also, frankly, the booming marketplace that we're all in right now, at least in the residential construction space. So that's happening today at 1 o'clock Eastern. So if many of the Savant dealers in North America, I'm assuming, are probably attending those activities right now. So you probably maybe won't see this live. Maybe you'll listen to this later on and you'll say, hey, he was referencing that thing. So all is well. Let me go ahead and jump over here to Facebook just to make sure that technology is behaving and that we are live. Let's see here. I'm going to refresh my Facebook to make sure this is cooperating. I do see that we have, if you're out there and you're watching or liking, go ahead and maybe give us a comment. Tell us where you are coming to us from. My Facebook on my computer screen is actually locking up, so I'm not getting a live feed or update. So I don't know what is happening there. So you're going to help me out by giving me a live. Let's see here. Yeah, my Facebook is giving me nothing. That's pretty interesting. I think it wants, I'm going to give it one more shot. I appreciate your patience if you're watching and listening. I want to try to see if I can get this to work. There we go. Okay, and I do see the live feed. All right, yay. All right, so today I am bringing you a guest. Thank you, Tina. I see your message in Slack, and she said, yes, Ron, we can see you. You are live. So thank you for that, Tina. Greatly appreciated. Today I am bringing you a different type of guest. This is someone I promise you none of you know, and you all probably would want to know. You'd want to know this person or people like this person. And so let me just jump into it. This is show 155, and I'm here to bring you Adam Pauska. And he'll correct me when we go live here in a minute and tell me if I got that pronunciation wrong. But he is the principal at AXG Advisors, and they are an insurance brokerage company that serves the ultra-affluent. So his customer, if you're an integrator, is your customer. You guys serve the same customer. And there's going to be some really interesting, I think, ideas and topics of helping you all better understand what it means to actually insure and protect the assets of the ultra affluent, and some areas where you likely can learn how to talk about some of this subject matter and bring value to your customers. So I thought it would be fun. Again, a different type of guest. But let's do it. I've had the pleasure of meeting. I was introduced to Adam a few months ago, and we've talked, and he's a brilliant guy, and he's in his sphere of influence, he's a really well-known person and personality. So I think you guys are going to find him valuable. So let me go ahead and bring him in. Hello, Adam. How are you, sir?
Good. Hi, how are you?
Good. How bad did I butcher the last name?
Actually, perfect.
I did?
Yeah, depending on what part of the world you're in, it could be Pushka, Pauska. I mean, I've traveled a lot, so I get it differently all over the place, and I don't really have Pauska's fine, so I think you came pretty close to center.
I'm similar. My last name is Callis, but it's Callis. So I get all sorts of interesting pronunciations, and but yeah, more often than not, they'll say some version of Callis, and it's good enough. Where are you coming to us from, Adam? Where are you physically located?
I'm coming to you from sunny South Florida. You know, to the chagrin of probably many people who are up north right now.
I'm here in Fort Lauderdale. Where are you physically?
Fort Lauderdale. We're both in Fort Lauderdale.
Holy yeah, man! Has the weather here? We're going to totally rub it in now. Has the weather the last week not been amazing?
Yeah, it's been absolutely perfect. I mean, this is when being in South Florida really pays dividends. These next couple of months, even though there's a lot more traffic right now, but you know, I'll take it.
Yeah, the snowbirds are in town, right? So they're
absolutely, yeah.
They're here and they're clogging up the roadways. But in my case, my little one, my 12-year-old, we're still doing the virtual school thing. You know, he's not going to school physically. He's virtual, you know, attending school. So we're not driving to school every morning. So we're actually, I'll be honest, I'm not on the road that often. I'm not experiencing the traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just better to be for weather reasons. You know, even though I don't have to leave my place anymore, it's nice to know that outside that window it's 80 degrees and sunny.
80 degrees and sunny. Amen. All right, so Adam, you and I have some mutual friends, and they said that we should connect, and we did. And I learned about your business, and I said, man, I think you could teach me. For sure. I know you could teach our audience as well a few things as well, and I thought it would be fun to have you on. So why don't you tell our audience what exactly is AXG Advisors?
AXG Advisors is an insurance brokerage, like you said, specializing in servicing affluent individuals and families all over the world.
All over the world. All right. So how did you land at doing this? And I'm looking at your bio, and if people are listening on the podcast, they would also have heard me read your bio, but I'm just going to give our audience that's tuning in live here a little bit of a heads up that you've been published, it looks like all over the world. The Today Show, Wall Street Journal, Mashable, BBC, NPR, CNN, Forbes, published in Forbes, the Muse, Mashable, DailyWorth, Newsweek. That's not too shabby, Adam. That's kind of impressive.
It's I'm blushing a little bit. I don't like hearing about that, but yeah, it's that's my resume.
All right. So all of those people in the news and media, what are they talking to you about?
Insurance, you know, the affluent space in the insurance marketplace. I mean, people love to talk about high-end cars, jewelry, art, all these things. So all the vendors that service that industry are constantly a target by all those outlets. So having an insurance guy who's building products, developing products inside that network is sort of an oddity. In that space, you know, if you have like a round table of trusted advisors, the insurance guy is never part of that table. We try very hard to be part of that table. And I think that because we're insurance nerds at heart, but also have, you know, a good understanding of the space and who our clients are and what they need, we've been able to sit at that table more times than not. And it becomes interesting because you very rarely hear from the insurance side of that ecosystem.
So I've got lots of fun things. I want to talk to you about the way, how does the high net worth customer think about technology in the home, and even what are ways that you've taught me that technology actually saves them money and makes their life better. And there's probably some tips and tricks that we could deliver to our audience today that they're going to walk away with having learned something, and they're going to be able to immediately likely impact their customers. But let's go back. What's your story? How'd you land doing this?
So insurance as a whole, there's only two different ways you get into it. Talk to anyone that you know that's in insurance. Is one of the two. It's either someone in your family dragged you into it, your mom or your dad worked in it or whatever it might be, or you just fall ass backwards into it. I'm on the ass backwards end. Okay. I was in college. I had no money and I was looking to travel the world, and some firm, it was HSBC, picked me up in London at Lloyd's of London. And just because it was in London, I took the job.
Were you living in London? Like, how did you land a gig? Like, that seems pretty damn cool to come out of college and land a job in London.
So I'm not going to tell you how old I am exactly, but when I was a junior, senior in college, the internet was still sort of like just being used for businesses. And I just really was attracted to it. And I found all these different ways that, foreign companies were looking for, foreign interns, foreign junior people, for whatever reason. I don't know why companies really do that, but I found all these opportunities in Hong Kong, Singapore, all over Europe, Spain. London, or Great Britain as a whole, was more attractive to me because I spoke the language, or close enough to the language. So I really focused on.
I don't know that they would say we speak perfect English, but it's good enough, I guess, to get by.
My first 2 weeks over there were a struggle, especially because I had to keep asking my boss to repeat himself over and over and over again. I was like, I'm getting sent home. This is not working out. But after 2 weeks, I really caught on to everything. So it was a little bit of a learning curve, but yeah, definitely not exactly one for one as far as the English goes. But yeah, I wrote a really nice cover letter, and someone took a shot on me. And the story is, it's really funny. I was in school in upstate New York, and I sent this letter out with my resume, and someone said, "We have someone in New York right now who works in our office. Would you be willing to drive down and meet with them?" I said, "Absolutely." So I drove down, took the meeting, had a few pints, and then they said, "Come on over." And I had never been outside the country before in my entire life. And I right after graduation, essentially packed up my room and headed off to London. And it was a wild experience. And I was there for a while. And then as soon as I got back, I thought to myself, "Oh, let me do something else. Let me figure out, what something else I might be passionate about." Insurance in London is a very different marketplace than it is here in the US. It's
Lloyd's of London is insuring all over the planet, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean they're more or less they're the inventors of insurance. So
I remember hearing about I want to say the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria were insured by Lloyd's. I'm making that up, but it was something.
So
some old ships were insured by Lloyd's of London, weren't they?
So it was started out as shipping insurance, and Lloyd's was a bar, and these rich gentlemen would come to the bar, and they would essentially place bets on, hey, this ship has this captain and this route, and this is the cargo, and let's, hey, if you pay me X, I'll pay you Y if the ship goes down. And there was a big chalkboard behind the bar, and they'd write the name of the ship with the captain and the value. And if you wanted a piece of that risk, you would write your name underneath the ship name. That's where the term underwriting comes from. So,
wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history there. There's a big bell in the center of Lloyd's, and anytime there's a major catastrophe anywhere in the world, they ring the bell and all trading stops. And that bell was from one of their first salvage ships that they pulled off the seafloor. So there's a lot. It's really cool. I mean, it's just different than it is here in the U.S. But when I came back to the U.S. and I was trying to do something different, I had this resume of Lloyd's of London, which at the time, honestly, I didn't really understand how great that was. So all these other insurance companies really were, backing up, trucks of money to my house, being like, "Hey, come, work for us, come do this, come do that." And I was like, and so it just started being like, "Oh, I'll do it for a little longer, a little longer, a little longer." And insurance is such a big ecosystem. There's so many different things you can do in insurance. It wasn't until I moved out to Los Angeles and started working in private client that I really found my passion for it. And that was, interacting with individuals and families, sort of seeing the benefit of the products that I was placing and developing for those families, how it affected them directly, and then seeing the value in those relationships. Personal insurance, in my opinion, this isn't the industry opinion, is a lot more sticky. So I develop those relationships, and I'm not just a bottom line on some corporation sort of PML that is up for marketing every year. The relationships, they count on me. It's very much a personal relationship. They want to know that if something happens, that I'm the guy that's going to pick up the phone and I'm the one that's going to take care of them. And I really like that, which is why I ended up in private client, developing AXG Advisors as really a culmination of all my experience in the insurance marketplace, trying to pick out the good from everywhere I was and get rid of all the bad. And I think that, so far so good, more or less.
All right. So tell me, what does a typical client look like? What framework can you share publicly here? How much money do they have? And like what can you share? What is normal? Because I'm not your typical client, and I'm not your we don't have I'm not of the net worth I'm thinking that somebody needs to be or have in order to be your customer. So what does that look like?
So there is no secret sauce or secret formula for why we have the clients we have. We have 35-year-old private equity fund partners whose capital is mostly tied up in either a fund or that company, who might be worth $50 million next year, but right now they're just renting a condo in New York City. And we onboarded them because we want them to grow with us, and we want to be able to take care of them if they ever have a liquidity event. But a standard client for us is really in excess of $100 million in net worth, I would say. But from an insurance standpoint, it really means they're paying in excess of $50,000 in premium annually. Okay. Those are sort of the guiding lines if we had to create a boundary or a parameter for what our clients look like. They're all over the world. They're families, they're individuals, they're family offices, they're small business owners, entrepreneurs, old money, new money. There's no really rhyme or reason to how they come to us. They just see a value in the way that we do business. We have an offering that's a little bit different, a little bit more boutique, a little bit more hands-on than the larger brokerage firms out there that have private client offerings.
You have educated me, which I've appreciated. I ask a lot of silly questions, and you still keep a straight face and answer them, and I super appreciate that about you, Adam. What are the concerns of a high net worth customer or an individual or family in terms of insurance, and maybe where do the flaws exist out there in the wild today?
Their concerns are the same as the average consumer. Everyone has, in the high net worth space, everyone has a passion, in my experience, whether it's the cars, the homes, the art collection, the jewelry. And what we try to focus on is that passion that they have and make sure that it's a curated type of collection as well as a well-protected type of collection. And most of what we do is educational. We want our clients to understand what they're buying, why they're buying it. If they have a very high risk appetite or very low risk appetite, we're developing a strategy that works for them. And there's no universal, especially in our space in the private client, there's nothing universal across any one of our clients. So our job is to really educate and drill down when we see those, that passion or that one thing that we think that they're overlooking. And that's how we build these portfolios, is to really service that individual client. And, their concerns are really twofold generally. It's catastrophic level losses. So major losses that would either cost them, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, or it's just an annoyance, right? They don't want to have to think about it on a day-to-day basis. If something happens, they want to know it's taken care of. And our clients usually fall into one of those two categories.
Technology. I'm in the technology space. My universe is all the toys and, some necessary, some not necessary. Some you have to have, some you just want in the home and or in the office. And what is the landscape of the technology in a home? Again, to using some of your numbers, these systems could cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They could cost millions. There are some systems in some homes right here in Fort Lauderdale that I'm very aware of. I worked with in different capacities, and I know they're multi-million-dollar just AV systems or technology systems in the home. What are the challenges around those systems being insured, and or what should an integrator, the small businesses that are designing, installing, programming, and servicing these systems, what should they be aware of that that would bring value to this customer that's about to spend this money on this tech in their house?
So that's a great question. So the insurance landscape has been changing so dramatically over the last 5 years, where insurance really doesn't want to be the first backstop to a major exposure. They want homes to be very well mitigated and be able to stand on their own. And as a result, they're offering huge credits for people that protect their home the correct way. Easiest example is the largest loss leader in all of insurance on the personal line side right now is water damage. And that's not flood, that's from direct water damage. So
that's not hurricane damage. That's
correct. Yeah, it's not. If you would think it was wildfire, earthquake, flood, hurricane, it's not. It's just regular water damage. So pipes breaking in homes, refrigerators leaking, washing machines leaking, and the insurance market as a whole tends to be very reactive instead of proactive. So if you go through one of these claims with your insurance carrier, there's a good chance in my space, in the private client space, that they'll actually pay for you to install a water mitigation device as part of the claim once it's already happened. What we are trying to educate our clients on is the credits that are available to them for doing this up front. So for integrators that are listening to this, a water mitigation device like a FlowLogic or a Fin or a Water Hero, there's in most of the time a 12.5% credit to have that installed in your home. For clients that are building homes at the very beginning, all these things are very, very easy to integrate. So if you go through the list of, having a signal continuity system, having a backup generator attached to the home to make sure all the systems stay online in case of a power outage, having that water flow alarm tied into a central system, the average carry cost of these assets for our clients is greatly reduced over the life expectancy of that asset by putting these devices in place. Sometimes there's an immediate savings year one. Most of the time, the savings happens in years 3, 4, 5. But it's not just about saving on the insurance and reducing the carry cost of the home. It's about not having to go through that loss to begin with. So while a lot of our clients have a higher risk tolerance, they see the value in this being like, well, if this can stop a loss from happening in the first place, I avoid the headache, but also I reduce my overall expense for a very minimal cost up front. And the cost is smaller and smaller, as from inception of building the home as it is to installing on an older home, depending on, the pipe size and whatever you have to go through to get it installed. So it's something that we try to educate not just our clients on, but, integrators, smart home companies, anyone that's going in and having these offerings to our clients. We want to make them aware that, in this space, there's a huge value to getting this stuff into the homes that you might not see in the immediate, but is very, very relevant over, a 6, 7, 8 year span.
Can we raise maybe a cartoon example of and I'm going to give you, say, a $10 million house. Like it has, beautiful finishings, art, it's a nice lot, and that's in some areas of Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach, that's an average house, right? That's not even the nicest houses. That's just maybe an average house. I know that's hard to believe for some, it's pretty crazy, but it is what it is. And if an integrator that might be putting in, I'm going to make up a number, say in that house, maybe a $500,000 technology system. And I'm going to say, I think often water mitigation or water damage is not part of those systems. And if anyone listening disagrees, please type that into the comments. I'd love to know. What would it mean? I mean, it can't be many dollars, maybe a few $1,000 all in to add something like that to that technology system. What would the savings look like to a homeowner over time? What's the lifetime savings to them?
So let's just assume the initial cost of installing something like a FlowLogic is $2,500 with labor, right? If you have a $10 million home, let's assume the reconstruction cost of that home is $8 million. You're paying $2 million for the land. The premium on that in South Florida again, because of the wind and all this stuff, could be $40,000 a year. That credit, assuming it's tied into the alarm system, is a 12.5% base rate credit, which means you could actually recoup that possibly year one. So if your life expectancy of that asset is average mortgage is 30 years, right? So for our clients, they don't tend to stay in these homes that long. Let's assume 7 years. So if you run out, $2,500 a year savings over the 7 years, it's meaningful. But like I said, I think our clients, because they have deep pockets, they really see the value. And I don't want to have to go through one of these situations. I just don't want to have to deal with it. So it pays for itself, and then you don't have to worry about it on the tail end. And for clients that are spending, $500,000 installing these smart home systems, it becomes a no-brainer. Like, why not get the full build out? I think a lot of times they're unaware. And when I tell a lot of my clients that we go through an onboarding process about the water mitigation devices and some of the other stuff, they're totally oblivious to it. And I say, well, it's the loss leader in our insurance marketplace right now. So much so that they'll pay for you to get one of these installed if a loss happens. Do it now. Let's save you the money on the upfront, and mitigate the chances of you having a headache down the road. It becomes, it's not a huge amount of dollar savings, but when we talk about a lot of these things adding up, you can take the cost of one of these homes in South Florida from $40,000 a year in annual premium all the way down to 20, depending on how you stack the credits, and that becomes meaningful savings over a 10-year period.
All right. So now, if you don't mind, can you give me another one? What's another type of technology that would be wise to deploy into a home and, in fact, help the integrator because they're selling cool tech, and help the homeowner because they're getting a credit?
So a permanently installed backup generator system that keeps everything else online if the power goes down. This is not necessarily Central Florida, but a UL lightning protection system, perimeter security, either motion sensors or cameras tied up to either a cloud recording device or not. There's credits for all this stuff. Depending on how robust the system is, the higher the credit. Signal continuity systems, right? So same thing, cellular backup for the alarms, heat sensors, temperature alarms. There's really residential sprinkler systems. If you have residential sprinkler systems in all of the home, 100% of the home, it's a much higher credit than if you just have it in, the kitchen or the garage. If you have it wired to the whole house, it's a much bigger credit. Obviously, your burglar and fire alarm. And there's some other weird stuff. Like if you go to California, there's something called a seismic shutoff alarm, which a plumber can install. And it's essentially like this little ping pong ball that if the ground shakes, the ping pong ball drops between the pipe and blocks the flow of gas. And if you have a sensor alarm set up to that, it's a huge credit.
I'm imagining that you are meeting your customers, the families you represent, or the people, and you're educating them of these things. And is it fair to say this is not commonly or widely known? All of these credits exist. I mean, I've never heard of it, but maybe if I had $100 million, I would have heard of it. How common is it that your customers know about this?
Yeah, I mean, my customers, once they're onboarded, they know about it. I mean, we bring it up every year. I mean, we do a deep dive when we go into discovery before we onboard them and look at the homes and say, okay, what is missing here and what makes sense? And again, this is all about understanding the client's personality. I think I touched on this with you earlier. 5 years ago, some of these water flow alarms were more of an annoyance than they were, a good product. They were constantly shutting the water system off. They had to be reset. The technology on a lot of this stuff has caught up to, now you can access it on your smartphone. You can access it as part of your smart home system. It becomes much more manageable. So when we educate our clients about this stuff, they might have heard from neighbors or from someone, we don't want to do this. It's just an annoyance. We hate it. When we can show them that, hey, the technology has gotten better. It's really caught up to now it's a functional tool for you to use. They're usually shocked. And when we put we can quantify the numbers. Hey, if you spend this is what you'll save. And then if we run this out over the course of 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, then the client's eyes lit up and they say, well, let's do it. But it's not something that's addressed, I don't think, throughout the insurance community. I don't see people talking about it. I know insurance carriers like to promote it, but that's promoting it to the brokers. It's not promoting it to the clients necessarily. And so the brokers, it's like a game of telephone. Like how much information is getting back to the client and how much thought is being put into, that account, that portfolio, that asset. Because we're boutique, because you understand our clients, because I can pick up the phone and, pre-COVID, it was great. I'd sometimes go to my clients' houses. We'd have breakfast with their kids, and it was like it's a very personal relationship. Because of the boutique nature of our business, we're really able to dial in to those specific assets. And I understand it well enough to go, hey, this makes sense for you. When you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of homeowners policies and auto policies and, in a larger insurance marketplace as a whole, it's just too cumbersome of a task for a lot of agents or brokers to take on. Which is, again, why I feel like I'm very fortunate to have landed, or at least found this space, because I think that's where we're delivering really good risk analysis and, good value to our clients.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It seems like you found this niche where the customers are large enough, they're doing enough, they have enough policies to where the savings are meaningful to them. And there's enough, money in the ecosystem for it to be a good place for you to grow a business. So that's super interesting. I'm going to give you another scenario. A lot of our customers are out in, and I'm speaking of One Firefly. A lot of our the state of California is larger than most of the countries on the planet in terms of population and revenue. And so there's a huge ecosystem of high net worth individuals in California, as well as technology contracting businesses in California. And so one thing I'm super aware of is a lot of these beautiful homes built on the hillsides. And, not only do they have fear of earthquake, and you mentioned the earthquake sensor doodad, but they also have all these fires that we've been hearing about in the news in recent years. Where does technology, if at all, play a role in trying to help those homes and create a win-win for everyone?
Sort of. I'm going to try to keep us focused on the integrators, since that's this is what this is all about. But there's a lot of technology, and going back to what I said earlier.
Feel free to go outside of it. I'm sure the folks watching or listening would like to hear all the cool stuff you're going to talk about. So
So the thought premise behind insurance in California right now in wildfire areas is insurance companies want the homes to be able to stand on their own. So if a fire comes, they want the home to be very well defended, without having to have a fire department show up to sort of stop the fire from burning the home down. And if you look at case study, you'll see a hillside where every home is burned, and then there's just one home standing there unscathed. And the case study goes into why is that? Why did that happen? And it's really actionable data. Having a brush clearance contract, having defensible space, having secondary water systems that can soak the ground, soak the roof, having ember resistant venting. There's this ex-fired fighter who came up with something called brain guard vents, which is essentially a vent that has a little maze in it, so the embers can't make their way into the house. And that's a lot of homes burned from the inside out. And that's because the embers get inside the house, the fire starts inside, and then once the fire department gets there, it's too late. The whole home is ignited.
I'm just thinking about like my house, in my AC closet, it has that vent on the roof that's pulling in the fresh air into the house. So it's that equivalent. I'm sure they're much fancier and bigger houses, but that vent essentially is what would be pulling in embers if there's a blaze going on outside.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. So there's a lot of technology that exists for helping your home stand alone. One of the coolest things that we've seen is when clients are building homes, they bury giant water tanks. And we're seeing this a lot in new home construction. In California, if you live up a one-way street in the hills, which exists a lot in California, the fire department won't go up there to try to fight a fire for your house because if they get closed in, there's no way for them to get out. So if you live up one of these one-way streets and you can get sort of, a smart system where if you have to evacuate the home, right? And you have access to these in-ground or protected water tanks that have a system that can, spray water around the home and you can activate it remotely, that's a huge, huge way to mitigate your wildfire exposure. Clearing the ground, clearing the brush, creating that defensible space is probably paramount. And then building it the right way. Like, you don't want to have a log cabin in the middle of the woods, up a one-way street with trees hanging all over it. Probably not a good risk.
Sounds like an insurance nightmare. Are those the things that keep you up at night, Adam, thinking about those types of properties?
So yeah, it's really funny because a lot of those properties still exist, and they're uninsurable at this point in California. So the insurance marketplace in California is going to change. It already is changing. The commissioner of insurance has basically said if you have a policy in California, the insurer can't cancel it now for wildfire risk reasons. They've locked in rates. I mean, there's a crazy thing going on in California right now that is going to come to a head at some point, because there are a lot of clients that require insurance. But I think really where the marketplace is going is, if you're going to live in a wildfire area in California, it's smart to go to work with a landscape designer to make sure the trees you have around your property aren't flammable. Italian cypress trees, which are all over California, act like Roman candles because the whole inside is dry. So if you work, if you work with the people who understand this, your home will be insurable first and foremost, but also the cost to do so will be far, far less. And, your home will be protected. You won't ever have to go through that loss in the first place, which for every client I've ever spoken to, if you give them the option, really good insurance and go through a loss, or just don't go through the loss to begin with, it's always just don't go through the loss to begin with. So so keeping that in mind, I know that there's a ton of new startup companies in California, SoCal and NorCal, that are trying to wrap their heads around fire mitigation. And, we've sort of kept our finger on the pulse as to which of these companies are going to be picked up by underwriters, what's going to be added on as credits, how is it going to make its way into the rating system. And the insurance industry as a whole is just a very slow moving animal. It's a very old industry. It's just not very, it doesn't adapt very quickly. So over the next couple of years, I'm sure we'll see new technology come out for wildfire risk, for wildfire mitigation. And it just ends up being which carriers are going to pick that up and accept it for underwriting purposes.
Got it. I want to take this, and I'm mindful of time, and I'm mindful at 1 o'clock I have to go to the Savant event. So I'm seeing that is not too distant away. But I got a couple more things I'd love to cover with you, Adam.
Sure.
Here while I have you. One is you are, and you have for many years, served high net worth customers, and that takes simply, that's a skill set, and I'm sure you've learned through trial and error over the years, but to be able to grow a pedigree or a portfolio of high net worth customers, it's taken some practice from you, or practices of how to simply care for them and how to take care of them and how to serve their needs and solve their problems. And those, even though you're in the insurance brokerage business, in my universe of custom integrators, they're offering technology solutions. You're actually serving the same customer. Yep. What are, if any, so maybe some tips or ideas that you've practiced that you would recommend those listening maybe consider, or what has worked for you in how to work with that type of customer that might be valuable to those listening?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and I haven't put that much thought into it, but
so much so that we've lost him here. Let's see.
Speaking with the client.
You broke up there. I think you timed that breakup perfectly, right as you were pausing with that question. All right, your internet's back. Go ahead.
So I think that understanding the customer, knowing what they, it's important for us to understand that we have to educate the customer, and we have to sort of dance around the topics that are important to the customer and avoid the ones that are not. So having that initial, we call it our discovery phase, where we engage with the client and just get a better understanding of their life, their day-to-day, what they're passionate about. That allows us to really deliver, a proposal or, a product that's fitted for them. And, again, like I said earlier, I think I'm an insurance technician first. and I'm a salesman second. So my, all the years I spent in all these different niches of insurance really gave me the ability to be, have a really good understanding of the insurance marketplace and how insurance works. And then I take that knowledge and I just deliver it in a very educational format to the client. And that seems to be the most successful thing that I've ever done, is instead of trying to push product, we just try to educate. Hey, these are your options. And that engagement allows us to create a better relationship with the clients, but also gives them the ability to make educated decisions on what they want with our help. I guess if that would be the best answer I can give you.
No, it's clearly working for you. I'll give you credit. Our mutual friend Hannes, which actually is texting me, he's like, Ron, how do I watch the interview? I'll send him the link of the Facebook video once it's live, or once it's in replay. But our mutual friend, I mean, he was actually telling me a story about you, where you had he introduced you to one of his clients. Hannes is an investment banker, and you were able to go in, diagnose the situation, and actually solve a lot of problems the customer didn't even know they had. And that was, my question is, why didn't the other previous vendor or supplier of insurance services do that? So is there something unique you're doing regarding your discovery process, or the depth of the interview, or the process you're taking that client through that you are aware is particularly different?
It's one word. It's just hypertrophy, right? Some of these
I don't even know what that word means. What is hypertrophy?
It's when something gets so big that it destroys itself.
Okay. And Scrabble, that's like an 8-point word. That's a big one.
So, some of the bigger brokerages, while the best practices and the thought process behind the integration of these clients and the products that they're delivered, at the highest level, at the executive level, it might be 100% efficient. But then you get into management, client service advisors, and then associates. And the people that are doing the day-to-day work are really the associates. And so they're not really, and the production, this is going into everything that's wrong with insurance to begin with, but in the insurance industry, there's producers, which are the salespeople, and then there's client service advisors. And the producers and the client service advisors are supposed to work together, but a lot of times they don't. And the producer doesn't know as much, in my experience, as the client service provider, because they're just selling it and then they're stepping away. We don't have that. So I'm the guy that does the legwork, the technical side of it, the quotes, understanding the risk, and then I'm selling it. So I have this fully encompassing knowledge of the client, their exposure. So it's a glaring thing that stands out when you do that. When you sort of piecemeal it all over the place, who's responsible for this and who's responsible for that, it's very easy to miss. So, it's nonsensical. Sometimes we go into these things and it's just so obvious. Like if you would have looked at it at all with any care, you would see it right away. Which is why I think my success has been very easy. I haven't had a lot of competition in the space, because once we engage with these clients, it's very easy to point out the mistakes. It's very easy to better design a program. And it's much easier to develop the relationship, at this boutique level, because we have such a high threshold for who our clients are. We don't always take on every client. So if a client comes to us, if there's not a mutual value in us working together, it just doesn't happen.
I'm going to put on the screen here. Let's see if I can get this on screen. And they changed the software here. Darn it. There it is. Old titles and crawlers. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. They changed the UI on me. So I'll just do this verbally. I was going to help you out and put on the screen your website URL, but I'll ask you, Adam, for those that are listening and or watching, and they think you're super interesting, and they want to get in touch, what is the best way or ways that you would have our audience reach out to you?
Email is always best. It's just Adam at axg-advisors.com. And it's ADVISORS, the English way, which is the way everyone in our industry prefers it. Email, easy.
All right. And so I'm going to restate his URL, his website. It's axg-advisors, ADVISORS.com. My team will also put that down in the comments. If you want to be able to reference that, folks, you can jump over to our Facebook page, find the interview. You can also go to our website, onefirefly.com, and find our Automation Unplugged page. And of course, you'll find Adam there as well, and that should be up in the next week or so. Adam, I want to thank you for coming on and being graceful with me and my lack of knowledge on how to sound intelligent and talk about insurance, at least in this way. But I'm very confident our audience would have found a lot of value from everything that you did share. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on, and I think that you did a very good job navigating. Hopefully the insurance didn't put anyone to sleep too much.
Well, I'll report back to you. I'll let you know if anyone watches or downloads the podcast, but I'm pretty sure they will. I think that there's clearly room for us as an industry to educate the design trade, the designers, the architects, the builders, and of course the customers and the customer representatives, client representatives regarding the role technology can play in helping that risk mitigation strategy across so many different categories be put in place, and there's significant credits there available. And I wasn't aware of that, and that's fascinating.
I will say this: if the integrators start doing more of this, it'll make my job much easier.
All right, well, there you go, guys. We need to make it happen, and I'm already noodling from my team. I think we could start producing more content, educational content on behalf of the integrator in their marketing, their social media, their blogs, their emails around the role technology should have from an insurance perspective. I think that's a missing conversation. I don't recall hearing that anytime ever in our space. I've been in the space for 20 years. So I think there's a lot of room for us as an industry to improve. Adam, I know you're a busy man, as am I. So I'm going to say thank you again. And I know you and I will talk soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks again.
All right, folks, there you have it. That was Adam Pauska from AXG Advisors. Definitely want to check him out, visit his website, and I'm sure he wants to hear from you if you guys want to share some ideas or you want to learn more about how insurance and technology can play nice together. I think we should be an ecosystem that leans on each other. It certainly seems pretty logical to me. I'm gonna jump here. I'm gonna jump into the Savant national sales meeting that's in 30 minutes, and so I'm gonna let you all go. If you guys are gonna be over there, I will see you there. And otherwise, I will see you next week with we've got a full slate of Automation Unplugged interviews scheduled here for the next several months. So all sorts of fun and interesting guests. Don't forget to be safe and have a relaxing weekend. I'm actually going to go camping this weekend with my son, so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to play hooky on Friday and do a Friday to Sunday camping trip up in north of Orlando in the National Forest up there. So I will see you all next time. And let me put our information. Here's our website, and there is our phone number if you want to reach out. I will see you guys next time.